Over the last couple weeks, we have been talking about cases, stickers, capsules, weapon skins, you name it, that could be very solid investments for the mid to long term because of how low the CS2 market was. After that trade revert update, we did see the market sell off and we were consolidating for a few weeks, which was prime time for investments. Now, you might be thinking, well, it's probably too late, right? Because the market is bouncing back. No, this is actually still a very good time to be looking at solid investments because we're still hovering around, the mid-range here. We're not at all-time highs yet. Again, we're still around 4.9 billion, which is a very good start. Overall, in the last 7 days, we're up about 4.36%, which is a good start to the recovery. But the last 90 days, we're only up about 6.6%. So again, we're still hovering around this range. Yes, we are getting closer to that all-time high retest, but I still think that there's some very good buy opportunities out there. Now, in this video, I want to go over cases because I know that to some people, they don't care about stickers, they don't care about sticker capsules, and they really don't care about skins. What they want to invest in is the cases because they know over time, some of these cases will get taken out of active pool. On top of that, they will get opened, which the supply diminishes greatly, the demand rises, and then with it, so does the price. So a lot of people like cases. So in this video, I want to go over some cases. We've been talking about a lot of these cases in some previous videos, but the cases that I'm really looking at right now are the ones that have the most sought after gold or skins in them. Now, when we are thinking about this, the first case that I want to go over is the Dreams and Nightmare case. And I know that this is going to be one of those picks that is kind of obvious. I think that a lot of people probably already know about the Dreams and Nightmares case because, again, it's one of the, I would argue that this case, I don't know if it's just my luck, but the odds on this case are so bad. I know it's some YouTubers that have done case openings, this is probably like one of their best cases to open, but I despise this case simply because of how many of them I've opened with absolutely zero luck. But beyond that, everyone is aware of this case because of the golds in it. Now, before we get into that, here in a second, I want to go over the item prices. So if we look at the case prices in the last 30 days, we could see that this is only up about 4% in the last 30 days. In the last 52 weeks, yes, we are up 80%. But I also want you guys to realize that we are also down about almost 30% on the 52-week high. So we still have some profit that we can make if we're just going to bounce back to that high. But I think that Dreams and Nightmares are going to be one of those cases that skyrockets in value. Obviously, yes, it's still an active pull. You can still get this as a drop. Once it is taken out, I do think that this is going to be one of those very expensive cases. It's still pretty expensive compared to some of the lower price items, but it's because of the golds, right? If we're thinking about this, it's about $1.30 right now. On some exchanges, it's going to be a little bit higher, but beyond that, going off the supply, I know that this number, we can't really trust it too much, but we're going to go off of this because this is what we have in front of us. About 360, almost 5,000 total supply. New supply in the last 30 days, what we actually lost about almost 4,000 of these cases to unboxings, but I still think that because it's an active rotation, you might average in here and there, just kind of buy up the supply over time. Don't go all in at one point because, again, I do think that the supply will probably increase here and there, which will also affect the value. But, I still think that this is going to be a very good case to invest into for the mid to long-term region. And the reason why I say that is because of the golds. It has those incredible butterfly knives that are the most expensive knives in the game. And the most sought after ones too. The emeralds, the dopplers. This is what people want to unbox. And most of the unboxings that I see for the Dreams and Nightmares is simply to target the emeralds or possibly some of the phases. But I still think that any case that has the butterfly knives in them are going to be extremely expensive long term. Even right now, if we're thinking about Dreams and Nightmares case, can we compare it to the Operation Riptide case? We sure can. But the problem here is this is a case that's not an active rotation. The total supply is only 18,600. Supply has been diminishing greatly. And yes, like I said, this does have pretty much the same exact skins in it. There is some very good additional skins a part of this. But the main thing about this case is that, it's $11. On some exchanges, it's 12 to 13. At some point in time, it was $16 almost. So if we're thinking about that with the Dreams and Nightmares case, this could be a case that hits like the high $5 to $10 region, but it's going to take some time, and it's going to really rely on it being taken out of active pool, which, it's a toss-up of what's going to be taken out of active pool. We don't know what's going to happen, but this would definitely be one of those cases that's at the top of my list. Now, next up, I do want to bring up the Spectrum case as well, because the Spectrum case, if we're thinking about this, again, with those butterfly knives, this one has the better butterfly knives in it. And what I mean by that is we have the ruby here. We have the sapphire. I mean, guys, these are some of the most expensive knives in the game. And it's for good measure. I mean, these are like some of the best looking knives in the game as well. You also have the Doppler Phase 2s. You also even have the Black Pearl, which is, a little bit more expensive than most knives in the game, like even the ruby and the sapphire. So this is one of those cases that I feel very confident about long term as well. It's about $4.37 right now in terms of the 7-day low. If we're looking at the 52-week low, we're up about 85%, down about 30% from the high. I still think that this one's going to be hitting around roughly the... I think that we bounce back to the 52-week high, but I also think that this could easily hit $10 in time. Again, total supply, 49,000, sub 50K. New supply in the last 30 days, 5,132 were unboxed. And if we're thinking about this, again, we can't go off of this total supply as a 100% accurate measure. It's very hard to see, exactly, how much supply is out there of these cases. But if we're comparing this back to the Operation Riptide, if we're looking at the supply here, this is what I mean. 49,600 compared to 18,600. The Spectrum case, if it's going to get opened as fast as it has been, I mean, negative 5,000 in the last 30 days compared to negative 3,000 almost, it's pretty clear that the supply for the Spectrum case is going to diminish greatly. And by the way, in terms of, the supply, like the new supply, this doesn't have to directly correlate to, unboxings. This could also be people putting this into a container or so and just holding on to it. It really just goes off of a few factors, but the main thing that we're looking at here is how sought after this case will be in the mid to long term region. And again, with the cases that have the best golds in them, like this one, I do think that they're going to be extremely sought after, and they will become more and more expensive over time. On top of that, the Gamma case. So the Gamma case is kind of a toss up there as well with it, because if we're looking at the golds here, we have one of the most sought after knives as well in the game, right next to the butterfly knife, which is of course the Karambit, and the Karambit emeralds, Gamma Dopplers. I mean, guys, this is, and by the way, it's not just the Karambits that are in here. You also have the M9 Bayos, which I personally love the M9 Bayos, even the Bayos themselves as well. I personally love the M9 Bayos because I just always love the OG look of them. I know that a lot of people don't like them now in CS2, but I personally love them. But the main thing here and the main selling point will be the Karambits. And if we're thinking about that, this case is about $3.37, 52-week high. We're down about 50%, up about 53.85% in the last 52-week low. Again, total supply 63, almost 64,000, about 4,000 dropped in the last 30 days. So if we're thinking about the Gamma case, I also think that this is going to be a very good toss-up right next to the Spectrum and the Dreams and Nightmare. Now, next up, we have the Revolver case. Now, this one is going to probably be, if we're thinking about cases to look at, some people might not like this case simply because of some of the skins in it. But personally speaking, I think that this case, the biggest selling point for it will be either the Case Hardened Karambit, the Fade, or the Crimson Web. Again, this goes for those that are looking at pattern-based skins, that are, hunting blue gems, things like that. I think that the Revolver case is one that if you hold it long enough, the supply is going to diminish greatly from, case openers opening this to hunt specific cases or skins, and the case supply itself is just going to diminish greatly over time. About 53,200 total supply, negative 4,000 in the last 30 days. Again, I'm looking at this and I don't care about any of the skins in this case, to be honest with you guys. The main thing that I'm looking at is the knives. And the knives here, the biggest selling point to me is the Fade, Case Hardened, and Crimson Web. The Fade is one of the most expensive Karambit skins next to the rubies and the emeralds, things like that. But again, this is one of those cases that's pretty affordable, right around like the $3 range almost. That long term, I could easily see this one hitting, you know, the high figure of like $5 to $10 at some point in time. Next up, and one that's not talked about much at all, the Operation Vanguard weapon case. Again, if we're looking at the supply here, the supply is so low. Sub 15K, negative 2,000 in the last 30 days. Why am I looking at this case? Well, the main reason why is because of the same reason why we're looking at the Revolver case. Do I think that the Revolver case will be a better investment than the Vanguard? Sure, you could argue that. However, I do think that the Wasteland Rebel AK has been going up in value quite a bit. It's not the best looking AK, but it does have better skins in this case compared to the Revolver case. And it has the same knives. It has some, you know, a little bit more knife selections in this as well. But, you know, for the most part, I'm really looking at this next to the Revolver case to kind of say, all right, well, you know, if we're looking at this one or this one, you know, is this one worth a little bit overpay considering the supply? I don't believe it is, right? I still think that the Revolver case is a better buy than the Operation Vanguard, but I still think that, you know, compared to, you know, the Revolver case, we're looking at the last 52-week low and the 52-week high. This might be a better buy just from an ROI point of view, but I still think that if we're looking into like the better buy here, it would probably be the Revolver case, just going off of a few metrics, which is the fact that we could buy up more supply without affecting the value. And I still think that the value of this case will match the same price of the Vanguard weapon case, if not go higher than it. But this is definitely a good mention as well. And last but not least, if we're thinking about cases that are going to get taken out of rotation, I've mentioned it many times over in the past, the Revolution case, sorry. The Revolution case, the reason why I'm going to bring this one up quite a bit on the channel is simply because this is such a cheap case. And it's still an active rotation, so yes, the value of it will probably go down over time a bit. But that's good for us because that means that we could average in more and more. But there's almost 420,000 total supply. Yes, it's getting open quite heavily, about negative 10,000 almost in the last 30 days. The main reason why people love this this case, it's not because of some crazy looking skin in it. It's because of the gloves. That's right. You can get Vice gloves out of this case. You can get Amphibious gloves out of this case. You can get some of the best looking gloves in this case. Crimson Web gloves. I mean, guys, these are the cases that you want to be looking into. Now, do I think that the Revolution case is going to skyrocket in value anytime soon? Again, we are relying on Valve to remove it from active pool. I don't know if that's going to be the case anytime soon, simply because it has been, I mean, this is a very new case compared to some of the other ones that have been in active rotation, February 9th, 2023. So, you know, we are at the 2+ year mark, but I don't know if this is going to get taken out of active rotation anytime soon, but I do think that this will be a very good long-term accumulation investment from a case point of view, because again, if it does get taken out of rotation anytime soon, it is going to skyrocket in value, especially considering the golds in it, because again, people will want to hunt the Vice gloves. Even the Omega gloves are really good. The Amphibious gloves, there's some other gloves in here that aren't bad. I just personally like, you know, the Vice gloves, the Omegas, and the Amphibious gloves more than pretty much anything else in this case. But with that being said, these are some nice cases to be looking into right now. Obviously, is there some better buys out there in terms of cases? Yeah, sure. You know, I think that the Danger Zone case is a very good opportunity as well. But the problem with this thing is that in the last 52 weeks, it was up 181% off of the 52-week low. Now, this is not like a major metric to go off of and say, all right, well, I have to avoid this, right? You know, if we're thinking about the supply here, the supply is changing rapidly over the last 30 days. It's not an active rotation. And if we're looking at some of the skins in here, I do think that, you know, the skins aren't bad. Even the golds are not bad either. You know, I think that at some point in time, some of these knives will be a little bit more expensive. Right now, they're pretty cheap because more people are looking into the, you know, OGs. They're looking at karambits, butterfly knives. A lot of people don't like some of these knives, but the main thing that we're looking at here is just ROI. We don't really care about what people think about the golds or the, you know, skins or so. There is a few metrics that I go off of in terms of like what's the most sought after golds or skins that could definitely affect the supply and demand ratio of these cases, which I think everyone should be looking into. However, some of these cases might just go up in value over time because of how rare they become. But, you know, with that being said, I do think that some of these cases are a very good buy right now. We'll have to circle back to it in some time, but right now the main thing that I'm looking at is the market bouncing back, which it seems as though it is doing, and I think cases are going to be a big part of, you know, this big bounce back as well, because again, everyone loves to open cases. They want to hunt some of these golds. They want to hunt the rarest skins, so that's going to just cause the market to erupt even higher from this point on. And we are closing in on that all-time high. We're down about 4.54% from that all-time high, which I do think that we target very soon as well. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely leave a like, subscribe to notifications on to never miss a future update. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.